Please open the roll.
Bill. Call me.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. We have 8 bills before the committee today. We will start with Delegate Waxman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. It's my pleasure to present House Bill 1171. I think we started this last week, ran into a hiccup, so y'all were kind enough to let this be brought back up this week. I have met with the people involved. We do have an amendment. The amendments are on line 45. We removed the D, combined section C and D together, and we've removed the word "so notified" on line 45. On line 13, which was the area that caused contention about having 3 business days to review the required information on the absentee ballot, a security envelope, that now has been changed to 4 days to address the issue by one of the localities that objected to only having 3 days.
Is there a motion to move the amendment? Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The amendment is moved. Is anyone here speak in opposition of the bill? Do you have anyone online? Senator Deeds.
Mr. Chair, I think a lot of the problem before was from Fairfax County. Is Fairfax County now resolved? You're okay with the bill? Okay.
All right. Any members to speak in support of the bill, please come forward. And please place you have a minute on the clock each.
Jennifer Vanny, Fairfax County. Yes, the amendment solved our problem, our concerns.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, David Bailey on behalf of the Voter Registrars Association of Virginia, and we continue to support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one online. If you're online, please make sure your video is on. That is a requirement to be able to speak online, and you will have 30 seconds. You may begin.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, everyone who is involved with this bill, registrars, people from Fairfax, I'm Clarabelle Wheeler, I'm on the electoral board in Albemarle County. We are all appreciative of this bill, and I hope that you will pass it on to the governor for signature. Thank you.
All right. Any comments from members of the committee? We have a motion to report and a second. Any substitute motions? Seeing none, please open the vote.
Big difference.
Ayes 12, noes 2.
That's 12, noes 2. That bill reports. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee.
Next, we'll see Delegate Price. And let's start HB 623 first.
Okay, and I'm also going to help out with Delegate Shins if those should come before you.
Yes, we'll get through your bills first.
Sure.
And then.
Awesome. I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Okay. So House Bill 623 is to update the Voting Rights Act of Virginia.
Just one moment, Delegate. Committee at ease.
The Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, B 306. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, B 306.
Meeting will come to order. Delegate Price, you were about to present House Bill 623.
Yes, and I do believe, Mr. Chairman, that there is a substitute I'd like for you all to consider.
It's a substitute online.
Yes.
All right. Is there a motion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The substitute is online. You may continue. Can you please explain the substitute?
Yep. So with the substitute, currently based on the Voting Rights Act of Virginia, either the Attorney General or an impacted voter can initiate a civil cause of action if the voting rights of a voter of a protected class were impacted through one of the covered practices. So House Bill 623 would add an organization whose membership includes voters who are members of a protected class or whose mission is to ensure voting access to those who are able to initiate that civil cause of action. Also, as it pertains to the covered practices, we included relocation or reduction in number of polling places, and this substitute would add voter satellite offices as well to that covered practice. And so if a civil cause of action would be initiated, this bill would have it heard in the Circuit Court of Richmond to have some consistency and outlines the timeline of such cases. And then as it pertains to early voting, with this substitute, the governing body of any county or city can establish a plan each year for the number and location of voter satellite offices and dates and times for which those satellite offices for all of the elections that year would run through, so that each change wouldn't have to be approved. It would just be, going along with their plan. We did hear some feedback from the localities, the counties, and the cities. And so I believe there's an amendment that would address some of their concerns as it pertains to subsections 5 and 6 with the voting satellite offices or the cover practices.
Is that another amendment?
Yes, it's an amendment to the substitute.
Move the amendment.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
And so just because I know that there were some concerns that were expressed from some of the committee members as well, if we could have that reported so that it's accurate.
Yes.
Thank
Council
you.
want to report the amendment?
Mr. Chair, on line 81 of the substitute, after the word emergency, we'll insert or when such change is made in accordance with the plan established pursuant to subsection C of section 24.2-701.2.
Thank you. Now, is there anyone here in opposition of the bill? If you're in opposition of the bill, please come up, sir. You have 1 minute. Anyone online?
And Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Mark Flynn on behalf of the municipal league, and it's really about the venue, this part provision that says that the litigation has to be filed in the Circuit Court of Richmond. If it's VML member of Bristol, Virginia, that could cost them an easy $10,000 a week if they have to bring enough people to a trial in Richmond. The current law does provide that it has to be tried in the locality where the issue arises, and we think that that's actually much more equitable for everybody. We've talked with Delegate Price about it and understand that that's not, that we have different positions, but that's where we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you speaking in opposition of the bill?
Well, Mr. Chairman, not in full opposition.
Well, if you're not speaking in full opposition of the bill, please, are you in opposition or support?
Just wanted to register the one concern and thank the patron for working with us. I'll just
All
associate
right,
myself
well,
with what Mr.
we're
Flynn
just
has
taking
said.
opposition right now. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman,
No,
if I could
sir,
just
no, sir,
clarify.
no, sir, no,
Okay.
no
It
clarify.
wasn't
Thank you,
opposition,
sir.
Just concern on the one issue.
Thank you. We have one person online. Please make sure your camera is on. You have 30 seconds, and then we will take support.
Hello, Chairman Rouse and members. This is Shelley Overlander. I am an electoral board member from Loudoun County. I oppose HB 624.
Please turn on your camera, ma'am.
Oh, shoot, I thought it was on. Let's see.
I'm sorry if our policy is your camera isn't on, you cannot provide testimony. So we'll come back to you. Hopefully you get your camera on, and we'll come back to you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Who's next? In opposition or support? We're doing opposition now.
Opposition, yes.
All right, you have 30 seconds, ma'am.
Clever Wheeler, Albemarle County Electoral Board member speaking for myself. I would voice the same opposition. The current law requires that any of these cases be taken in the local jurisdiction of the circuit court where the cases are brought. I feel strongly that the localities know better how to operate than sending all of the cases to the Richmond Circuit Court. Thank you very much for this consideration.
Thank you. So next person in support and opposition. Okay, was the lady able to get her camera back on?
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Would you like me to speak?
Yes, we can't see you, but ma'am, we'll give you 15 seconds if you could just state your support or opposition.
I'm opposed. I'm electoral board from Loudoun County, and the electoral board needs to make these decisions. Any reduction in satellite location, hours, or day is prohibited by this bill, and the electoral boards are the best to make these decisions, and they make them based on expected voter turnout, availability of staff, costs, etc. And so this would make a civil suit available to be taken on any election official who reduces any form of early voting and look at that as discrimination when that's clearly not the case. So I just ask you to protect the local electoral boards and allow us to make those decisions and not be in threat of a civil suit, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have one more person in opposition. Please make sure your camera is on. Our policy is your camera has to be on in order for you to provide testimony. If your camera is not on, then I will make an exception today, but you are not, won't be able to provide or testimony.
Melody Clark.
Okay, thank you. Those who are in support of the bill, in person, anyone in support, to speak in support, please come to the podium. You each, we're seeing, put 3 minutes on the clock total, please.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Tram Nguyen with New Virginia Majority. We strongly support the legislation to strengthen the Voting Rights Act of Virginia. We think it's really important to protect the integrity of our elections and voting rights in general. Thank the patron and VML and VACO and others working with us to tweak the language to get it to a place where the covered practices and the plan and everything is going to work out.
Thank you.
Tanya Mallory with the Virginia NAACP. We continue to support the bill, and we continue to support the expansion of the Voting Rights Amendment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Liz White. I'm the Executive Director of Upvote Virginia. We are here in support of the bill and the incredible the incredibly important rights that it strengthens for Virginians. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Monica Hutchinson, President for Henrico County NAACP, and we also strongly support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Those are in. We heard from opposition support. Now we'll go to members of the committee. Seeing who's in the queue first, Senator Rome, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for the patron.
You may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'd just ask the patron if she could just talk about the Richmond decision, basically why, after hearing the testimony from the witnesses who expressed concerns about moving it from locality, I assume this was a very intentional decision. So I just would like the patron to respond to that, please, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would say to the senator that basically for consistency and this is really important. So I guess short of creating a voting court or an elections court or democracy court, but we just do want to make sure that there is some consistency, especially with the legislation that we're passing, the intent of the Voting Rights Act of Virginia, but also this is where the appeals would be. And so it was definitely intentional, but I do understand the concern that was raised.
Thank you. Any more questions from members of the committee? Do we have a motion?
Move to report.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Please open the vote. Last hour, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The concern that I've been reading the substitute here as quickly as I can. I think for those of us, I live in the Richmond area, and for those of us who are not on the 95 corridor, I think it's easy to forget how difficult it can be to get to the Richmond for folks who live in Southwest or South Side. So I'm concerned about consolidating this in one court that happens to be in the city of Richmond. And we've also had legislation this year that if it gets signed into law, one bill that comes to mind prohibits a satellite voting location from being in the same building as a police station, or that may be a bill that's actually coming up today. And I think under this substitute, as I'm reading it quickly, that could then subject that locality, if they move the satellite location out of a building with a police station, could subject them to liability under this. So I'm a little concerned about the interplay there, in addition to the geographic the geographic problems it causes for people who live far from Richmond.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Delegate Price, any final words? We have a motion and a second.
So I would just, in the larger context of the bill for the Voting Rights Act of Virginia, to remind the committee that this is about disenfranchising, diluting, or obstructing the vote for protected classes. So it's not just any change. It is a change that would have that impact on the protected classes.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Please open the vote.
Ayes 8, no 7.
Thank you. That bill reports. Next, I'll hear from House Bill 904, which is similar to bills that Senator Van Valkenburg and I both carried. Delegate Price, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. So yes, you have heard Senate Bill 300 and then the Senate Bill that I believe it was 196 from Van Valkenburg. So what we have before you, and I believe is a substitute, amendments to what you have before you. So we heard some feedback. So this bill would establish a definitive set standard for sources of data that are used to challenge voter registrations. It would increase the confidence level of data being used to cancel or inactivate voter registrations. It would allow or mandate that there's a record created for every single voter cancellation so that they were subject to FOIA and so that there was a record to be investigated should there be any problems that were found. And then it would also allow for those who it had been communicated that there was a new felony to have that 14 days.
Dr. Price, are you speaking to the amendments?
Well, that was in general. So the amendments would do those things, but we did hear feedback, and so
just one second, Delegate Price. I just want to move the amendments.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right, Delegate Price, now you
Thank
can
you. I'm so
explain the
sorry.
amendment.
So as written in the bill before the amendments, it would say that it had to be a confidence level of 80 and first name and date of birth and all of that. And so it would strike the wording after confidence score of at least 80, which would get us to the 80, however way, whatever way you could get to the 80 with the formula, but it wouldn't add an additional things that it has to do if you get to the 80. Also, it changes the points for social security number from 40 to 50. And in that, we're just trying to make sure that it's something significant that you get to for the 80 or multiple points of lower weighted information, but that you get to that confidence. And it was really important for us for that, because if we're going to cancel a voter's registration, we want it to be based off data that you can be confident in.
Thank you. Is there anyone in opposition of the bill? And do we have anyone online? All right. How many people do we have? All right. Please make sure your camera is on and speaking and providing testimony. If your camera is not on, you will be unable to provide testimony. So,
Ann G., please unmute and begin your testimony.
thank you. You have 30 seconds, ma'am.
Thank you. I would like to point out for you UOCAVA voters that this credentialing system of 80 points allows a non-citizen, military UOCAVA, non-military UOCAVA, who does not need a driver's license, who can claim not to have a social security number issued, to never meet the 80-point threshold with date of birth, last name, first name, address, and zip code, which is all that's required with a statement of affirmation for a non-military UOCAVA person to register to vote. So I would ask not to pass this bill.
Thank you, ma'am.
Clara Bell Wheeler, please unmute and begin. You're still muted. It's probably best.
All right, go to the next person. We'll come back.
Okay. Joan Port, please unmute and begin your testimony.
We are in support. Is that okay?
Okay, we're just taking opposition now, so just one moment.
Shelley Oberlander.
Hello, Mr. Chairman. I hope you can see me now. And members, this is Shelley Oberlander. I'm an electoral board member from Loudoun County, speaking on behalf of myself. This bill removes current sections of Virginia law that enable the registrars to do their job accurately and well. It removes tools and deadlines that the registrars are currently using to maintain current and accurate voter registration lists. And this system is complicated. It's a complicated point system. It has a lot of extra reports and bureaucracy for the registrars to have to do with the already limited time. And I ask you to vote no on HB 904 and let the registrars do their job with the current laws.
Thank you,
sir.
Thank you, ma'am. We go back to the young lady who.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I haven't been called a young lady in a long time.
Yes, ma'am.
This is a mammoth bill that has 16 different sections of the Code of Virginia in alteration. 16. Hugely changes the Code of Virginia. It does add extra work for the registrar. It adds a complicated, quote, confidence scheduling, which must be met. And it removes all of the previously cited in code deadlines that require certain actions to be done within a timely fashion. If you procrastinate, you impede the completion of a task. And that's what this bill does in terms of list maintenance and making our registrations current and accurate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, those in support of the bill in person, please come up and speak. Seeing one person please place a minute on the clock.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Tram Nguyen,
with Virginia majority. As we supported the Senate versions, we support this House version. Appreciate the conversations that we had with registrars, Department of Elections, and other stakeholders to fine tune the formula to get it to a place where there gives more flexibility to reach that 80 point threshold. In reference to those deadlines that have claimed to have been moved or omitted, it actually just, it's moving from section to section. They're all still in there. They still have to report by certain deadlines, get the death information, et cetera. It's just in a different section. So it's just reorganized.
Thank you.
Tanya Mallory with Virginia NAACP, and we continue to support.
Thank you. I believe we have one person online to speak in support of the bill.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Joan Port, League of Women Voters of Virginia. We strongly support this bill. It will go a long way towards preventing voter purges made in error, and we urge you to support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Deeds.
I want to have a question of staff. This bill, according to the notes we have, it's similar to bills that the chairman passed out. Chairman and Senator Van Valkenburg both passed out of here, 300 and 196. And I want to know that the policy we're passing is identical, not similar to what we did.
Mr. Chair, if I might, as chair of POD in the House, I can assure you that we will hear Senate Bill 300 on Friday, and we hope to mirror any actions that are taken today by the Senate.
I hope you do that too, but I want to make sure that I'm voting for exactly the same thing I voted for before.
It's not, Mr. Chair, and that's what I was saying. So some of the updates that we've made today are actually not currently reflected in Senate Bill 300, but they're improvements, might I say, Mr. Chairman, as conversations have continued with the stakeholders. So it actually got us more support than the vote that you already took from the stakeholders at the table.
So what you're saying is when I come before your committee to present my bill,
it will look just the same as it does today.
Friendly amendments. Okay. What's that?
It's okay.
Thank you. Is there any more comments from members of the committee?
Move the report and refer to finance. Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Is it as amended?
Yes.
Yeah. As amended.
As amended. Please open.
Substitute as amended.
Please open the vote.
Ayes 906.
Thank you. Thank you, Delegate Price. I will call you back up to present Delegate Shen's bill.
Perfect, thank you.
We'll take Delegate O'Quinn next.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have House Bill 742. And I know that you all basically heard this bill last time, and we ended up in a posture where we were sort of deadlocked. So I don't know what, if anything, I can do to change anyone's mind. What I would say is that I think, I'm not going to call her up as a witness, but the chair of the House P&E Committee can attest to the fact that this timeline is a little trickier than I think either of us gave it credit for to execute. I think the timeline that we've come up with is good. I know that talked about the 4/5 issue to select the new commissioner. I think that's the whole point of depoliticizing this, so that you get to 4/5. And I will say, in this case, these things have a way of working themselves out. If we can't, and we decide, or if the board couldn't pick their commissioner, and they decide to go and say we don't, and the name comes before us of the current commissioner, then we have the right to pull that off. The fail-safe is that the director of operations, who's actually a Northam appointee in this case, would then become the acting director of the Board of Elections. And so, Mr. Chairman, there's no perfect way to get at this. It's been tried in many different ways, many different times. But I think this is a full faith effort to get there. And all in all, I think it's a pretty good compromise piece of legislation.
Thank you. We took opposition on this last week, or I should say testimony on this last week. So I just want to hear from members of the committee. Seeing who's in the queue, Senator Van Valkenburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Speaking to the bill. Mr. Chairman, I have a lot of respect for Delegate O'Quinn and his work on these issues, but I'll just restate my opposition from last week. I don't think these issues have a way of working themselves out, and that's my problem with the bill when it comes to having to have a supermajority of support. I heard a lot of angst from a lot of people since I'd said that last week, and I promised them all I would sit with them in the off season and come up with a better way to get to what I think everybody wants. I can't support this, and I'll have a motion at the appropriate time.
All right,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Speaking to the bill.
You have the floor.
Mr. Chair, just first want to commend the patron for being willing to, talk to members between the last meeting and this one. And, I certainly take the senator from Henrico at his word about, working the off season on this. My request pretty much for everyone here is let's see if we can get something on this, because I think the idea is good. The idea, like what we're dealing with here, this is not a bad idea. I know we have consternation over the 4/5 part. There's got to be a way to iron that out, and I think it can be done. So if there's going to be a motion to continue to 2025, I'll certainly support that, because I don't think it should be PBI'd.
All right. Any other members on the committee have any comments? I entertain a motion. Substitute motion. Substitute motion to continue to 2025. That takes precedence. Please open the vote.
Ayes 8, no 7.
Thank you. That bill will continue to 2025. Thank you, Delegate. Next, we have Delegate Reeser.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm presenting to you HB 1490. It's a bill that gives localities the option to set days and times of early voting locations beyond what this body, the General Assembly, mandated as a floor for the Board of Elections. It is a permissive bill, so if a locality took the option, it would give the opportunity for public input from voters and other stakeholders, and it would create a checks and balances on what the Board of Elections is doing. But it would never allow any locality to go beyond what this body deemed would be a floor. And before I go on, I have spoken with some of the larger localities, such as Fairfax County and the chair of the Board of Supervisors for Loudoun County, but I do understand that with the substitution on Delegate Price's bill, we may have this bill may no longer be necessary, so I don't want to take up a lot of time until you've made that determination.
And Mr. Chair, that's my very concern, and I would move to carry this bill over so we can look at it as an alternative down the road.
I would be grateful for that.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to carry over to 2025 and a second. Thank you, Delegate Reeser. Please open the vote.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you. Next, we have Delegate Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I brought a reminder for myself so I don't get into any trouble here. My staff has told me I have to have this and put it at the podium, so I do not call senators delegate. Get myself in trouble. We're back with House Bill 265. We had some discussion, some conversation with Senator Perry last time. She and I have worked that out during the week. I think we've got all the kinks that she was concerned about worked out in a substitute that council has. And
do we have to substitute?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Substitute's online.
All right. You want to explain the substitute? Then let's move to substitute. Is there a motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. All opposed? Hearing none. He's playing the substitute, counsel?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or Delegate Simon? Whoever prefers to take the floor.
I'll go ahead and take a shot at it, and I'm sure counsel will fix me if I get it wrong. So the concern, as you guys may recall, was that you didn't have a way to tie in. The exclusionary language was unclear in Senator Perry's mind, that what could be brought in if there was a pattern later and so forth. So the language that we came up with together is now a new section D that says the attorney for the Commonwealth shall request that the court dismiss the petition, and the court shall do so if the factual or legal allegations are not materially different than factual legal allegations set forth in a previously filed petition that was dismissed or the person was found not guilty. So in other words, that gets to that double jeopardy issue. It uses a little bit of legalese, but it says if it's not materially different.
One moment. We don't see the substitute online yet.
Hard copies are always preferable for us Luddites.
Yeah, it's just. Let's, that Delegate Simon, that bill will go by just temporarily so we can make sure members see the substitute. And in that time, we will have Delegate Price come up and present Delegate Shin's bill. So we'll be on House Bill 939. Delegate Price will be presenting Delegate Shin's bill, and you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe Council has prepared a substitute based on you all's conversation last week for House Bill 939.
We have the same thing.
Yes, and I see this. It's a substitute online. Yes, the substitute online. We're on House Bill 939. We heard this bill last week, and I believe members had some concerns, and what's the reason for the substitute now? Would you like to explain the substitute?
Sure. So thank you, Mr. Chair and members. As discussed by this committee last week, House Bill 939 by Delegate Shin seeks to extend the prohibition of a firearm from within 40 feet of a polling place to 100 feet. And by extending the line prohibiting firearms from 40 feet to 100 feet of polling places, voter registration sites, voter satellite offices, central absentee voter precincts, and election certification meeting sites for the state board, we can ensure that voters not only feel safe when they are casting their ballots, but election administrators too. And the mere presence of a firearm at a polling location can be intimidating to some voters who come to make their voices heard. And so with the substitute, the language would clarify knowingly carrying a firearm to hopefully address some of the concerns.
Thank you. As I recall, we heard this bill last week, but I believe Senator McGuire had have comments on this last week, or are you okay, sir? You can say something. Yes, sir. And then Senator McGuire, and then Senator Dees.
Yeah, I would just say that I understand that some people are intimidated by firearms, but some people feel safer when firearms are around. And 97% of all crimes committed with firearms are illegally obtained. But for law-abiding citizens, infringing on our Second Amendment right makes us helpless victims. And the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And if you look at some places like Chicago that have the strictest gun laws, they have the largest number of firearm-related crimes. And so if a bad guy with a gun showed up to a polling place, knowing there's a possibility that there are good guys with guns, you're less likely to have a problem. So for that reason and more,
Chairman,
I'd ask us to vote no.
Would the gentleman yield for a question? Sure. I mean, there were, Mr. Chairman, I would say that there were a bunch of good guys with guns in that hallway outside of the classroom in Uvalde, Texas, where they allowed those children to be slaughtered. What did those good guys with guns do?
Well, I would say
Senator McGuire has the floor.
In the General Assembly, for years I put in bills to put an armed police officer in every school, and we've got to support that. I mean, these guys have been so crushed they were hesitant to respond. But again, many instances where a good guy with a gun stopped a bad guy with a gun.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Distaff has the floor, then Senator Rome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, a question for the patron, Delegate Price.
You have the floor.
Delegate Price, I just wanted to make sure that in each of the locations, and I just finally got the substitute that was put in up. So I see on line 51, it does allow for law enforcement officers, retired law enforcement officers, and I'm assuming that's any sworn officer, like a fire marshal is included in the law enforcement officer. I just wanted to make sure that's throughout the entire bill.
Mr. Chair, and to the Senator, I am seeing in the substitute as defined by that code section, which I do not have up in front of me right now, but in every place that we are adding the language, that code section is referred to. The definitions within that code section, I would please yield to council for who is listed in there, but it is in every change we seek to make in House Bill 939 as substituted.
I see council is agreeing, not in agreement. If council also wants to clarify.
Mr. Chair, if you'd like, give me a moment, I can pull up that section 18.2.
Well,
but otherwise, yeah, it is in every section, that is correct.
thank you. I think that suffices.
Mr. Chair, Delegate Price, thank you very much.
Senator Roan was next in the queue. Are you? Okay. Senator Sturdivant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a comment on the bill. One of the questions I raised, I think, last week to Delegate Shin was whether or not this would catch up someone who was pulled over in their vehicle or a vehicle they were driving that was owned by someone else, and they lawfully had in their possession a firearm, whether or not they would then be subject, and it was within 100 feet of a polling place, whether they would get caught up in this and be committing a crime. Because I think that the addition of knowingly requires you to be knowingly carrying the firearm, not to be. So that's my concern with this. If we're going to be potentially catching people who are otherwise going about their business.
Mr. Chair.
Delegate Price, you have the
so
floor.
I would draw the committee's attention to occupying his own private property and see if that addressed the concerns, because we did hear similar concerns from folks that may be within their own private property, including cars, or within a home that is close to that and wanting to.
Thank you. Thank you, Delegate Price. I think council can further clarify.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Senator Sturdivant. In the substitute, we tried to clarify knowingly in response to the senator's questions last week. And so where it used to say knowingly carry on about his person a firearm within 100 feet, the change that's significant to the substitute is that we said one, knowingly carry about on his person a firearm, and two, knowingly do so within 100 feet in order to be clear that the person has to both have the firearm on them and know they have it on them, and also know that they are within 100 feet of a polling place, so that if you were strolling past a polling place, you happen to be going past a polling place, and you are carrying, that wouldn't catch you up unless you knew you were going into a polling place.
Mr. Chairman, just to follow up on that.
Okay, Senator Sturdivant, and then we've heard this bill last week. I'm going to entertain a motion after that.
And I appreciate those attempts to resolve it. I think the issue still is if you have someone who is driving a vehicle that is not their personal property but is someone else's, we potentially are catching people up there. And I think, again, even with knowingly carrying within 100 feet of a polling place, we'd basically be requiring people to drive elsewhere if the polling place is within 100 feet of the roadway. They would potentially be caught up if they were driving past and they knew that it was a polling place, but they're driving past going somewhere else. If they were pulled over, they would, I think, be subject to this criminal penalty. But thank you for the efforts to address those concerns.
Senator Roan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a motion. I'd like to speak to the motion.
You may continue.
So my motion is to report the bill as amended, or report the bill with the substitute. And to speak to that, number one, I think that based on the conversations last week, I think we actually really did see a good faith effort that came forward, to try to address practical concerns as the senator from Colonial Heights was just expressing. So even if it didn't get to quite where the senator wanted it to be, I want to at least acknowledge the fact that we had a good faith effort, on the patron's behalf to try to, assuage some concerns. The other thing I just wanted to mention is when I served in the other body with the presenter of the bill today, one of the things I will always remember that she told us that always stood out to me, especially as someone who works so much in, just transportation legislation. She said that she's one of the only members, if not the only member, who actually makes her commute home based around where gun violence is not, and has to actually take gun violence into account when she makes her commute home. That's something that I will always remember as long as I'm here. And so I don't think it serves the body well for the presenter of the bill today to be lectured about, gun violence, or, good guy with a gun, bad guy with a gun, all the other sort of stuff. She lives it. She knows what this subject inside and out. And it's okay for all of us to have our own, points of view and everything about that. But I would just say, let's have a little bit of due deference to the patron, or in this case, to the presenter of the bill today.
Thank you, Delegate Rome. We have a motion to report as amended. Is there a second? And a second. Seeing no further comment from members of the committee, please open the vote. Yes, let's turn it down. That bill reports 8-7. And I believe you have one more bill from Delegate Shyman. This is Shin, excuse me. Delegate Simon's right there. We've heard this bill last week as well. And so if you just want to tell the committee about the substitute or an amendment.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So House Bill 942, as you stated, was before you last week. And in reflection of the conversation, there is a substitute, and it was with an delayed enactment clause, and also adding where practicable for the provision for not hosting polling locations in places where there are police or sheriff's offices.
All right, is there a motion to move the amendment?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That amendment is moved. Is there any comments from members of the committee? And I know Senator Rome, this was something you worked with Delegate Shin on.
So, Mr. Chair, I guess a question for the presenter in this case. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, one of the issues that came up was also in terms of how do you identify a new location, right? Because that can be a very tricky thing. And I was wondering if the substitute, or I guess the amended version of the bill that's before us, has addressed any procedural issues or any assistance that we're going to give to either localities or electoral boards or whoever else it is that makes a decision about if you're not going to use blank, then here's the expedited way of which you can get blank approved or something along those lines. I was hoping the presenter might be able to speak to that, or perhaps council could if not.
Mr. Chair, the question on an expedited process of choosing a new place, if they needed to, because I believe the delayed enactment clause was what was added in order for them to give time to find a new one, because I think there are 5 polling locations that are currently across the Commonwealth that are currently located at police stations. So the hope was that the delayed enactment would give them time to find a new one.
That satisfies my question, Mr. Chair, so thank you.
Thank you. Now I'll entertain a motion for this bill.
I'll move to report, Mr. Chair, as amended.
Motion to report as amended. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I withdraw my motion and substitute motion. Move that this bill go by for the day.
All right. Well, the bill goes by for today.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Delegate Simon, back to you. All right, now, does members have this substitute in front of them? And thank you. And it is online now. Everyone is working hard.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. So while she's handing that out to review, the issue was because we didn't want folks to be charged with the same conduct twice, but the question was, what if the conduct that was dismissed earlier, then later evolved into sort of a pattern of conduct, could that still be used, those facts still be used in a later petition? And so the way we tried to solve that problem was to insert a new subsection let me get the right version out. Subsection D, which talks about I don't know if I have the right version anymore in front of me. Do you have a copy for me now, Meg? I'm sorry. Thank you. A new subsection D that talks about materiality, right, and says that one of the things the attorney for the Commonwealth needs to do when they're looking at the sufficiency here is to determine whether the factual or legal allegations are not materially different from the allegations set forth in a previously filed petition that had been either litigated or previously been dismissed. So again, we're trying to keep folks from bringing the same charge over and over and over again in an effort to sort of harass somebody, but not do it in such a way that prevents somebody who needs to be removed from being able to be removed. So that was sort of the balance that we struck on that question. And the question also came up, I think, from Senator Diggs about the issue of discovery. And so if you look at line 81, we have a new line about discovery that says, no discovery shall be allowed prior to a determination that valid grounds exist for the removal petition. So once you get to the trial phase, then you can do discovery. But if you never get to that point, there's no discovery.
Thank you, Dr. Simon. We've heard this bill last week. Thank you for working with members of the committee on these amendments. Did we move the amendments to substitute?
Substitute. I'll move the substitute.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The substitute is moved. Any comments from members of the committee? I see, I will entertain a motion.
With report. Second.
There's a motion to report and a second. Please open the vote.
Ayes 10, noes 5.
Thank you. That bill reports 10-5.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you. And that completes the docket for now. We have one bill left that we passed by for today.
They're not going to meet again, so.
And we're not, we don't meet next Tuesday.
Meet next Tuesday.
Well, that completes, well, that completes privileges and elections. Thank you.
Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia.